My name is Dagmar Celeste, Dagmar Brown Celeste now, and I was born in Austria and lived in Vienna most of my youth, and then fell in love with a young American in England. In fact, we met in a CND event. Now, CND, you may not know, was the Club for Nuclear Disarmament that Bertrand Russell, one of the British philosophers, had started in the late 50s to get rid of nuclear arms, well, to get rid of the atmospheric testing. And they succeeded, and there was strontium-90 in the air and in the baby milk, and we were protesting, and then they said, okay, fine, we'll stop the atmospheric testing, and they went underground, and it was worse. And they did even more testing, except now we couldn't really see it, we couldn't really smell it, it wasn't in the baby's milk anymore, but it was all over the place. And of course it continued, the arms race continued. So that was our first involvement. Of course, my first involvement was at birth. I mean, I was born in 1941 in a war-torn environment. And I really, in a way, suffered the consequences of that all my life. So I sort of know in my own body and in my own psyche how damaging war is, always is, and how useless. Because nothing was resolved with World War I. It only created World War II, and nothing was resolved with World War II. It just moved all of the sort of fascist elements into the United States of America, and here we now have to fight it anyway, inside and outside. So that's on a personal level. Then when we married and went to India, and in India I was exposed to, of course, Gandhi's philosophy and Mother Teresa, two very different kind of peacemakers. I worked with Mother Teresa as a volunteer, and I learned about Gandhi because the then Prime Minister in India, Jawaharlal Nehru, was one of the field operatives with Gandhiji. And after India, 4 years in India, we came back and decided to get involved politically. And Dick ran for the Ohio House of Representatives, and then for lieutenant governor, and eventually became governor. As governor, that made me something in Ohio, and I was able to use some of the ideas that I had developed all my life in terms of how to fight this beast. And we started by creating a Holocaust Commission, because in Ohio at the time, we were not commemorating the Holocaust. So we did the first commemoration of the Holocaust. We created the Holocaust, chaired the Holocaust Commission. We brought in people from a variety of fields to deal with creating a curriculum around Holocaust education. It was called Prejudice Unleashed. My hope was that we could expand that to not just cover what happened to Jews, but to actually look at the past. How did a civilized nation like Germany and Austria and the rest of them become so uncivilized, to say the least, murderer? And you know, what's happening now that is creating that same kind of, you know, how could we drop an atomic weapon on innocent civilians, not once but twice, in the name of democracy? So, but I couldn't, because for Jewish folks there's just no, the Holocaust is it, and you cannot mix it up with anything else. So I acquiesced, and we did the Holocaust Commission first. And then following that and that curriculum, which we also took to Germany and introduced in Germany, I came back to Ohio, and I gathered peace organizations that we had at the time basically sent out a call, whoever's involved in peace, please come to the governor's residence. Well, actually, we had them first at a meeting at Mohican, and we created something called the Ohio Peacemaking Education Network, OPEN. Then they came to the governor's residence, and I tried to get them to work together. That was very difficult to do, but we took on, my staff then took on the responsibility of creating a calendar for them and putting them together at the state fair in a peace pavilion and just getting them to work with each other on very specific, concrete, small things. Out of that came the task force for what later became the Ohio Commission on Dispute Resolution and Conflict Management. I wanted to call it the Peace Commission. I didn't get my way. And eventually it was unique in the sense that it, for the first time ever, and I think since, aligned all three branches of government around this issue. So the Speaker of the House, Vern Reif, had an appointment, could appoint 2 people to the commission. The governor appointed 2 people to the commission, and the Supreme Court Justice. The saving grace was that when we left office, 8 years later, the Supreme Court was still in the hands of the same person. And so when the next governor came in and tried to demolish, well, deconstruct the commission, it was the Republican Supreme Court Justice who actually stepped in and said, no, take a look at this. This is really working for us in the legal profession, and eventually it started to work in the education, and now it's working in the education. But there was another battle. I mean, getting the education department and getting teachers involved, I mean, nobody wanted to deal with it. They just wanted to do mediation for lawyers to begin with. But slowly but safely, the commission has really impacted on all kinds of ways of being in the state. And now I'm basically working with Jan, who used to be on the staff of the commission and is now directing a program here in Cleveland at the community college. And has managed to actually integrate some of these principles now into coursework, hopefully, at Tri-C for people to actually do a certificate. So it keeps coming around. And of course, I was not particularly surprised that the National Peace Academy chose to bring folks together in Ohio, because I truly believe we have done a lot of groundwork in the state. And Dennis Kucinich is no coincidence either, because he too, personally and then politically, had a long way to go before he became the champion for peacemaking that he is today. And we kind of grew up together in the political vineyard. So it's been an interesting journey so far, and it looks like it's going to get only more interesting.
Okay.